Come on, a couple more. Stay protracted more. Shoulders more forward. There you go.
Constant controversy, sponsors working round the clock to try to stop my concerts early. Surely hip-hop was never a problem. All the moment in Boston.
What's up? Marcus Seidel again here with my best friend Bruce, just like last time. Another one of my best friends, Alexa Bates, is here to help with the demonstration this time. I promise at some point I'll do some demonstrations, but I have all these cool friends that do them better than me, so I'm going to use Alexa this time, and Bruce is obviously going to be here to make sure everybody's form is correct so that we're not giving everybody bad information. Today's video is going to be about two different variations that I use for hyperextensions. One is going to be for lower back, lumbar stimulation. The other is going to be for hamstrings and glutes. Each different variation looks relatively similar to one another if you're an outsider looking at somebody doing them, but just a couple little cues make all the difference in the world on what muscle is actually being trained. So the first variation we're going to go over today is going to be if you're going to use this movement for your lower back. The reason I decided to go with lower back first is because I believe that's what most people think of this movement as, is a lower back movement, although it can be, as before mentioned, used for your glutes and hamstrings. Alexa's going to demonstrate, and I'm going to show you some of the cues necessary to make sure that you're doing this optimally for your lower back, and then later we're going to go over the variation for hamstrings and glutes. So the first thing is you want to drive with your chest. So bring your chest up. So what that's doing is contracting the muscles in the lower back as she comes up. That's really the main cue. And another thing I like to do, which we haven't even discussed, is if you pull your elbows back as if you're doing a row and leave them like that, that'll actually further contract the muscle. Keep the elbows back even when you go down. So that'll keep an even deeper contraction in the lower lats as you're coming up with the lower back, the spinal erectors and whatnot. So really you're not focusing so much on anything from the waist down on this particular part. It's just a matter of driving up with your chest and contracting the muscles in your back. One way to add load to this so that it's not just body weight, if you start to get stronger and want to make progression with a movement like this, there's two different ways that I typically use to do it. One, using a plate. This is just a 10-pound plate. This should be pretty easy. Bring it up to your chest. Yep. And like I said before, drive with your chest up so that the lower back is what's doing the work. Just do two more. Over here. Another variable that you can use to add load to the movement, which I actually prefer, is to use bands. We'll go with the medium band over here, the blue one. Come down a little bit to add a little bit extra tension.
Do you want me to do this?
Yes. Exact same concept with the bands. What the band actually does that's a little bit different than using a dumbbell is as you come down on the eccentric portion of the movement, the band loosens, so it actually decreases the tension. But as you come up on the concentric at the top of the movement, it adds resistance as the band stretches. So, and technically, you could do a combination of the band and the weight. So now we're getting into all kinds of cool, crazy stuff. But those are just two different ways to utilize external load as opposed to just using body weight on a movement like this. All right, so the second demonstration we're going to do today and the second variation of hyperextensions is going to be for isolation of the hamstrings and glutes. It looks a lot alike from the movement that we just did for lower back, but there are a couple cues that you need to use to ensure that you're using the right muscles on this particular movement if you're trying to isolate the hamstrings and glutes. Have your heels pretty close together with your toes off of the platform. That's going to shift a lot of the tension to the hamstrings and glutes. The next thing is gonna be to keep your chest down and let your back stay pretty rounded. What that's gonna do is relax the lower back as opposed to contracting it. And that's gonna keep the tension on the glutes and the hamstrings. You can literally see as Alexa comes up, her glute contract very significantly, and that's because that's where all the tension is. So a couple things to think about. I've used this movement with people and they've complained about lower back problems. Not necessarily once we've done it, but usually beforehand, thinking that this is a movement that they can't do. And in some cases, absolutely. If you shouldn't do it, you shouldn't do it. If you have a physician or someone telling you don't do any kind of hyperextension, then sure, don't do it. However, a lot of times the reason that you're having that lower back pain is because you're doing things improperly. So the main reason that people have lower back pain from movements like this, and I'm not talking about like pain in the actual muscle, I'm talking about like your spine and legitimate complications, is because people are overextending. So give just one example. I don't want you to do too many of these where you're extending way too far and coming up way too high for your lower back. If you're doing that, you're not necessarily contracting the muscle any further. It's just putting too much tension on your spine as opposed to the muscle. All right, quit doing it so you don't get hurt. But other than that, you should be perfectly safe doing a movement like this. There's not a ton of external load. Again, if you have severe back problems and a physician has told you do not do any form of hyperextension, then don't. But if it's just pain and you think that this is going to hurt because it's hurt in the past, it's probably because you've been doing it incorrectly. So if you use the cues we talked about today, you should be in good shape. All right, well, thanks for watching today. Those are the two variations for hyperextensions that I use both for lower back as well as hamstrings and glutes. If you have any questions that I didn't maybe cover, feel free to drop them in the comments section. Thanks to Bruce for making sure everybody's form was correct on everything we were doing. Thanks to Alexa for demonstrating. So again, thanks for watching and have a good one. Camo looks good on him though, doesn't it?
Oh, so good on him.
He used to have a camo collar.
He doesn't want my hat. Brucey Bruce, I know, I got food. Are you hungry? Yeah.
Oh, don't ask him if he's hungry, he'll fucking lose his shit. There you go, hey, sit down.
You sit.
Sit. Sit. Forward leg, sit.
Good boy.
That's very good, thank you. The reason I chose to do the back variation first is because I think most people we gotta do this over because dipshit over here is scratching himself. Hey, just lay down and quit being annoying.